So, good evening, everyone. Today I'm going to discuss
Good
uh,
evening,
very,
ma'am.
a very interesting kind of a topic, which we as teachers would really want our children to develop this particular trait, and that's critical thinking. So, without wasting any more time, because I know time is at premium and we are starting a bit late, so I'm sharing my screen. Uh, a big welcome to all of you on this webinar conducted by Sri Narayani Teacher Training Center. And I'm privileged to be here with a few of my thoughts. So my introduction I've already given earlier, but since it's mandatory, I'm Archana Mathur, and I'm currently working as a freelance trainer. I take workshops in different schools. And as far as qualifications are concerned, I'm an MA English and a B.Ed. Uh, also, I worked as a PGT English earlier, but then finally I became a PGT. Then I was a school principal. And since we all believe that education never stops, so I did this Google Certified Educator course, level 1 and 2. And then I joined AIEF and now SNTTC. So it's always good to grow. I've also joined the International English Language Teachers Association as their director for editorial affairs. And above all, to say so, I am a very, very passionate teacher and educator. I love being a teacher. I really feel proud that I'm a teacher. Right? So here is the presentation for today. How to develop critical thinking skills, obviously, in our students. Now, before I proceed, I'd like to ask you, my esteemed audience, what according to you are critical thinking? Like, what is critical thinking basically? How to develop, we'll discuss later, but I'll be glad if somebody would like to join me over here. What do you think is critical thinking?
Ma'am, thinking out of the box.
Yeah, but what? I, I want a definition or a little explanation. We say, let's think out of the box. But what does it actually imply? What is critical thinking? Okay, I'll give you an example to make you understand better. This was about 30 years ago. I was a young girl and I'd taken part in a ladies' meet. We coming from the army, we have a monthly regular meet where we all get together and discuss things. And there's a little program also. So there suddenly, when an item was going on the stage, there was some problem with the sound system and everything got just fat. And there was a very, very sensitive kind of, silence. There were about 150 odd ladies. Of course, there were no gentlemen, just ladies and no VIPs, nothing. It was just we, our group. But still, it was very embarrassing. You are on stage and suddenly there's absolutely no sound. So within minutes, I think the ladies, they overcame the problem and the mic came back to life. And we had a wonderful MC. And the moment she could speak, she said, ladies, the silence was purely for effect. And everybody clapped. So this was a presence of mind to change an embarrassing situation into something which was so ingenuous. Uh, I probably could not have said something like that, but I really admire her for the way she came up. Another thing I've seen, some videos which people keep posting on WhatsApp. There's a husband who tells his wife that if you can take out this 500 rupee note from the glass under that, without touching the glass, I'm going to give this 500 note to you. And he does it 3 times, and every time she takes it out using different techniques. I'm forgetting, I wish I could, but if I get that video back, I'm going to post it on the group. So this is critical thinking. She did not touch the glass. In fact, once the husband only removed the glass and she took the note away. So this is critical thinking. Like in a certain situation, you do not think in a normal manner. There is something different, something special you think to get out of that particular situation, or a kind of thought which is different from the usual. That is critical thinking. So it's like, unlocking a bulb. or making a fused bulb also light up. That is critical thinking, according to me. I'm not giving any definition. Now, today, these are the learning outcomes which I'm looking at by the time we finish. The ability to define critical thinking, like you can make your own definitions. Also, understanding the skills of like how can, like what exactly are the different components of critical thinking, and also applying these skills to decision making, because at times there are situations where you have to make a certain decision, you have to decide upon doing something. So these skills, these components of critical thinking are to be applied in that particular situation so that you can make your decision. You have to make your own judgments. All right. Now, we all educators, we know that there are 4 C's in the 21st century education. These are very important. So the first of these is critical thinking, which is followed by creativity. So creativity, we do understand. Then comes collaboration, and the last of all is communication. But today we are going to delve only on critical thinking. But these are the 4 C's, just to revise. Critical thinking is one of the components of these 4 C's, which have become a very mandatory part of 21st century education. Okay, now we come to the moot point. What is critical thinking all about? So just a moment. Yeah. Critical thinking is the ability to analyze the information which is being given to you using reliable evidence and making a logical and balanced conclusion. Like if you remember when we talk about the olden times, all the people thought that the earth was flat. But when somebody came up with the idea that earth is round, people just would not believe it. But slowly, the scholars, they got together, they analyzed this information that the earth is round. Why do you think it is round? Then they got reliable evidence, and then a balanced conclusion was made before we could send out rockets into space. Long before that, even Aryabhat and, all these ancient Indian scholars, they had come to the conclusion that earth is round. But it was not just because they thought that the earth was round. They got evidence to say that the earth was round. It was a very logical and balanced conclusion. Critical thinking involves researching, evaluating evidence, and using your own knowledge to find a solution or reach a decision. So when we talk about critical thinking, we have to always keep in mind that firstly, we have to research. If something is told to us, like we are taking a class, and the teacher says that for a seed to germinate, you need soil, water, and sunlight. So children should not just take it because my teacher is saying so, let it be. No, they must do it. I'm going to discuss that later also. They should collect evidence, they should evaluate it, and then they should use their own ideas and knowledge to come to this conclusion that yes, whatever was taught to me in my class is right. Right? So like there was another example that I can give you, that there was a teacher who wrote the table of 9 on the board. 9 ones are 9, 9 twos are 18, 9 threes are 27, that way. But when he wrote 9, so immediately one of the children, the students, they said, sir, 9 nines is not 83, it is 81. So this is critical thinking. Firstly, the child had the ability to criticize, not exactly criticize, but to bring about a mistake. It was done deliberately. The teacher knew it was 81, but deliberately he put 83 on the board. So this child is a critical thinker because immediately he or she, whatever the child was, the student was, he could see that there is a mistake in the entire table which has been written. One place there is something wrong. So this is something very important when we talk of critical thinking. Firstly, we have to locate. We have to see that questioning ability, which I'm going to discuss. So this is a very important part of your critical thinking. Now, it requires students to engage in a deeper level of thinking. It's not just kind of surface thinking. They have to think deeply. and then reach a meaningful understanding of a topic. I will discuss it subject-wise towards the end or towards in the later part of the webinar. And critical thinking definitely is an essential skill for success in the 21st century because things are developing so fast. Everything, today there is something, there's an invention today, and yesterday, tomorrow it becomes something, acha, that's an old thing, because another new thing has come today. So critical thinking is very essential because in 21st century, things are changing at a very, very rapid pace. Now, critical thinking is the intellectually disciplined process. It's not physical discipline, it is intellectual discipline. And this is like to actively and skillfully analyze information. Like whatever is told to you, don't take it because it's being told to you. This we have to explain to our students that if we give you an information, just don't take it because we are giving it. You have to skillfully analyze the information, think about it. And when you think that it is correct, only then should you accept that information. And the second part is to form judgments and solve problems on your own. Like we are supposed to give them a kind of a situation, or we give them a basic material, and then they are supposed to form an inference themselves. Because it's very important in this age that children use their own brains. We do not believe in rote learning now. So they have to understand the concept and then they have to use it in the correct manner to become successful in their lives. So they have to make their own judgments and they have to solve problems, because today we are not doing rote learning and teaching. We are trying to make our children do things. They do it themselves. It's experiential learning that we are trying to promote today. Okay, now the basic components of critical thinking. Firstly is observation and questioning. Sometimes when children ask questions, we feel irritated. Arey bhai, class chalne do na, why are you interfering in between? But no, that's a wrong thing as teachers that we do. If a child is asked, but it should be relevant. They should not be irrelevant questions. I remember when we were young and we had younger cousins, they would keep asking during a movie, ये क्यों रो रहा है? ये घर से क्यों चला गया? इसको मम्मी की याद आ रही है. So we as elder siblings, we used to answer their questions very patiently, though it was quite irritating because the film was being disturbed in between. But it showed that the child is trying to understand something. It's not something negative. If somebody is asking you a question, if your student is questioning you, it's not to test your knowledge. It is that they are trying to justify their own inference. So the first thing that we should feel happy about is that at least they have the ability to observe. Because when they observe, only then will they question us. I have seen a child who was very intently looking at ants that were moving towards a certain direction. So he asked his grandfather that why are they not losing their path? They have eyes, fine, but they do not have a road. So how is it that they are following the same path? This was a very intelligent question, which was answered that they have a sense of smell, so they follow that smell. They do have eyes, but they do not understand things like we do, so they follow a certain smell. And so they live in a community. They are also community people. So these kinds of observations, when they come from young children, it is something to feel happy about. Not that why is a child asking such a question. The like I just mentioned the ants. So the child was firstly just observing, and then he made this interpretation that every time he sees, ants, they're always crawling in the same direction. Seldom it is that one of them is probably going in the opposite direction, but usually, so that was the interpretation, that was the analysis, that ants always move in the same direction as the others. They do not change their route. They follow a certain path, or they follow a certain passage. Now, evaluation. In this case would be that ants are also social animals, insects in this way. So the evaluation is that, okay, it's not just we human beings who live in a society. Even these small creatures whom we think have no brains, but they actually have brains. So this is the evaluation, that they also have some kind of sense, they have a sensibility, and they know that they have to live in a community if they have to survive. A lone ant will not be able to survive, so they have to live in a community. They have their own colonies where they stay. And this is the inference, because after we have observed, after the analysis is done of the basic things which are provided, the basic information, then it is evaluated, and then we come to an inference. So this is applicable to every subject, which I'm going to discuss subject-wise also in the next few minutes. Why is critical thinking important in education? This is a kind of, a question which is just for the sake of it, because we know that in today's education, it's not rote learning that we are promoting. We are promoting kind of an education where we give a lot of importance to critical thinking. Why? Because when we promote critical thinking amongst our students, they get a deeper sense of learning. Like, for example, if we say that, food, take a balanced diet, for example, what does balanced diet consist of? So, because we've already taught the class that we have proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, minerals, all of these things. So, a balanced diet would be something, foodstuffs which have a little portion of all of these. Milk is supposed to be, but then you can't keep drinking milk. It's only for babies. So we can tell students that, okay, think of a menu where your food items will have all of these things in a good kind of quantity. So children can think of, like, if they think of protein, they can say eggs or fish if you're a non-vegetarian. If you're a vegetarian, they'll think of, say, rajma or dal or something. Then for vitamins, you can have paneer and palak. It has protein also then in the form of paneer. Then for fats, because all of these Indian gravies, they are usually cooked in oil or ghee, so you get some fat also. And minerals, of course, are there in salt, and all foodstuffs, all vegetables have a little bit of minerals in there. So this is how we inculcate deeper learning, that whatever we are doing, think deeply about it. Don't take the teaching or whatever material is being taught to you at the surface level. Think deeply about it. So this kind of deeper learning, when we develop amongst our students, they become better people or better students later. Problem solving, again, is very important. Like, for example, I remember we were taught a few things in our science classes, that if you add carbon dioxide to lime water, it turns milky. It's not exactly milky, it becomes a little dirty. If you add, say, Millen's reagent, I'm not very sure whether it's the correct word. If you add it to protein, it turns pink. If you add a certain reagent to fat, it becomes yellow. So these were the things which were taught to us. Now today, again, you must have seen a video where people are testing the authenticity of paneer in different eateries, in different restaurants. So they put iodine. If it turns black, it's not paneer, it's not protein, it is something else. It's not real paneer. It's not something that is edible. So these kinds of things, when you learn in your school time, you can utilize the information collected in later life. So critical thinking is very important in problem solving. If you are a critical thinker, it will be easier for you to solve the problem. Take up that cube, that colorful cube. I tried so many times, I could never get, all the 6 colors on 6 sides. But there are people who do it, in a jiffy, because there is a certain kind of a formula which they use. And within a minute, in fact, in a few seconds, they can solve that puzzle. So you have to learn the way of dealing with a certain problem. When you know it, you'll be able to do it as early as possible. Information literacy. There is so much of information which is available to our students today, but is that all authentic? Is that all right? No, it's not. So I will deal with information literacy in the next slide. And the next one is communication. If you are a critical thinker, if you have a deeper learning, if you've understood things at a deeper level and you're a good problem solver, you have to learn to be a good communicator as well. There are so many times I've seen there are lots of people who are very, very intelligent. They're superb in their subject. But when it comes to teaching, they are not able to convey the goods. Whereas an ordinary person who probably was not a very high scorer himself or herself as a student, but they are able to solve the problems of their students very quickly. So it's not your intelligence which is really important when you become a teacher. It's how you communicate it to your students, which is more important. So you not only have to be good at your subject, you have to be a very good communicator. And I'm dealing with all these things because I'm talking to teachers and educators and not to students right now. So along with making your children learn things at a deeper level and to make them problem solvers, you also have to teach them to be good communicators, because if they are not, then their critical thinking will be of no use. They have to communicate also to the best of their abilities. Coming back to information literacy, as I just said, that there's so much of information which is available on Google and so many sites. Most of it is correct, but a lot of it is fake also. There are so many fake videos which have been posted to me on WhatsApp. How do I find it? I try to lip sync. I see that, the sound which is coming, is it actually the way the lips are functioning? And then I realized, no, it's not. Ladies are speaking, women are speaking, but their lips are moving differently. So when such a video comes, instead of just simply forwarding it to others, try to find out its authenticity. Information is available, but we have to find out its correctness. We have to evaluate it, and then we have to further it forward. So information literacy, if we have to define, is the ability to find, evaluate, organize, use, and communicate information effectively and correctly. It should not be fake information. So it encompasses a set of skills needed to recognize when information is needed, locate relevant sources, assess the credibility of information, and then utilize it appropriately. The credibility has to be always checked. And this is what information literacy is all about. Information, yes, but correct or incorrect, that we have to judge ourselves. That kind of credibility is required. Now, before we make our students as critical thinkers, we ourselves have to be critical thinkers. So how do we train our teachers? We have to model critical thinking ourselves. How do we do it? So let's take up a situation. Like, for example, but again, as I said, questioning is very important when critical thinking is involved. You put up a question to your students that I am stuck up on the 15th floor of a building, and the 10th, 11th, and 12th floors have caught fire. Now, the ones who are on the lower levels can easily go down. They can run down the stairs. But what do? I cannot use the lift. I cannot use the stairs because they were also wooden and they are also burning. Now, what do? So let your children come out with different answers. Somebody will say, ma'am, try to locate a rope and tie to one of the windows and slither down. But you say, I'm scared of heights. I am scared of looking down from 15th floor. It's too high up, for me. So they will come up, and then maybe then you can say, you may select one or of their solution and say, okay, thank you so much. It was a brilliant. The children will also start thinking that way, right? So we have to model critical thinking. We have to give them a situation where they can make their brains think. They can scratch their heads and think of probable solutions. Put open-ended questions that, okay, like, for example, I'll explain with examples only. Like, you can tell them that you, brother and sister, you are teenagers and you are at home. And suddenly you realize that, some relatives have come to your place and your parents have gone out for an important meeting or some kind of social interaction. And they have told you not to light the gas. You're not supposed to use the gas stove. Now, how do you look after your guests? So again, children will come up. We can give them a soft drink. I can take out namkeen, or I can just run to the shop next door and I can get some samosas. So let them come up with these kinds of answers. And these are not just simple answers. It's how quickly they thought of the solution when the parents are not around. So these open-ended questions can also make your children think differently. Sometimes they come up with usual answers, but some children can come up with an answer which may surprise you also. I was very pleasantly surprised when I was teaching in the early 2000s in Delhi. And whenever such a question was put up to my girls from 6th, 7th, and 8th, I wasn't a PGT then, and they would come up with such brilliant ideas. I was foxed, I was surprised, but happily surprised I was that, you know, these little girls, they can think of things which I could not think of. So I was very happy with the way the new generation comes up with solutions for their problems. And debates and discussions should be a regular part of your classes. Put up a question and let them debate. But yes, but this debate should not be noisy like we have in our parliaments. So the debate should be friendly and the discussion should be positive. Give them a topic, let them discuss. Okay, like for example, on one side, our government says that we must plant trees, and on the other side, there's so much of tree felling which is going on. So you write an article, or you write a report, or you write an article for a magazine after debating amongst yourselves, and all the relevant points that you come up as your inference, you can write it in the report. So let the children get together, let them discuss softly, and then let them come out with their inference or their conclusions. This way, you will see that all of them are, you know, pooling in their resources, their ideas. They will debate, they will cut each other's, you know, they may argue, they may have counter arguments, but ultimately, the solution which comes is going to be really good. I can vouch on that. I can promise you that when they come up with their inferences, you will have a pleasant surprise, just as I had when I was teaching 30 years ago. 39, 25. Okay. So to continue with this, project-based learning is something which I'm sure most of us are doing today. It's nothing which is very unusual. In this case, okay, I'll take up science, which I have taken this example earlier also, that we tell our children to gather some seeds, any seed it could be chana, it could be rajma, it could be just anything, whatever is available at home. And you ask them to get 5 such seeds. One is put just like that in a bowl. Another one is put in a bowl of water. The third one is put in a bowl of soil. A little bit of mud is put. Another one has soil and water. And the last one has soil, water, and it is put outside. The other 4 are inside the house. So then you tell them to observe that which one of them, gets into a plant, which one of them germinates. And then when they keep seeing it for 4 or 5 days, they will realize that the bowl which was kept outside, which had both soil and water, and that seed also got sunlight, only that seed was able to germinate. So they've done a project. They've got to know that they've learned the lesson that a seed needs soil, water, and sunlight to germinate and to grow. If they're kept away from sunlight, they will just become yellow and die. So this was a project which you gave to your students and they learned their lesson on their own. The teacher did not tell them what. After the germination, then the teacher can come up and explain why it happened. Because the leaves need sunlight for photosynthesis. What is photosynthesis? And then you can go from there. But this is how you may begin cognition. Now, this is something which is a new term. We know what is recognition, but what is metacognition? This is the awareness and understanding of one's own thoughts and processes. Sometimes we get biased, we see something and we make our own judgment. This is happening because so and so thing happened. But at times, this inference that we make because of our biased ideas may not be correct. Firstly, we must reflect if we are making an assumption we must reflect upon it before coming to a very strong conclusion. So metacognition is very important for teachers. Rather than branding our students as very bright or ordinary or slow learners, we must realize, we must reflect that if a child is not able to do a certain task, what is the reason? Do not brand the child as useless और इसको तो हम कभी कुछ कर ही नहीं सकते, ये तो ऐसा ही है या ऐसी ही है. No, reflect upon. There could be various reasons why a child is not able to perform. So before we make them critical thinkers, we have to become critical thinkers ourselves. And here I wanted to actually say this at the very onset. Critical thinking is not criticism. Criticism is negative, but critical thinking is something which is very positive. Criticism is simply criticizing somebody for something, or maybe a book or somebody's writing or anything for that matter. But critical thinking is weighing the pros and cons of a certain situation before coming to a conclusion. And for that, metacognition for teachers is mandatory. Be aware of what you're thinking, why you're thinking, why have you come to a certain conclusion. Reflect upon your thought process, reflect upon your conclusion, and then come to your ultimate conclusion towards the end. Now we come to the strategies for developing critical thinking skills amongst our students. Firstly, let them question. That's very, very, very important. Like, for example, I remember as a middle school student, we had a wonderful teacher for physics. So he hung a bar magnet with a thread and he suspended it in the air. And then he rotated it, he disturbed it. So every time the bar magnet would come to stand, still and in a certain position. Again, he would disturb it. Again, the bar magnet would come to stand in that position only. So he asked us, he says, why, children, do you think this is happening? We had no answer. So then he taught us that this is magnetism. The earth has a magnetic field, and because of that magnetic field, this particular bar magnet comes to north-south position. You can see a dot on one end of the magnet. That's the north pole of this magnet. And north pole is pointing towards the north pole of the earth, and the other end is pointing towards the south pole of the earth. So we got to know two things, that magnets, they come to a certain position as per the magnetic field of the earth. And I had absolutely no idea at that age that the earth also has something known as a magnetic field. So then we questioned. Then he showed us a horseshoe magnet. So we asked him, sir, this doesn't have two sides. A horseshoe magnet has two sides which are together. So then he explained something to us at that time. This kind of questioning has to be there. So when our students ask us questions, of course, again, as I said earlier, they should be relevant questions, but let them question. Do not curb their curiosity. If you do that, you're not a good teacher. We must try to answer all questions of our students which are relevant to that particular chapter that we are doing in the class. Then multiple perspectives could be there. Like I said, open-ended questions. So when you have an open-ended question, there could be, different types of answers. It could be this, it could be that. There are certain questions which are open-ended and no one particular answer is correct. Like, for example, you can, suppose you're doing science only. So you ask your students to think of a menu which is rich in protein. Now, let them decide the menu themselves. Those who are vegetarians or eggetarians, they can talk about ham and eggs and all that. Of dal filling in something, they could think of vegetable sandwich, which is grilled. So multiple perspectives can be there for children. Let them think as per their own thought process. Some questions, some situations do not look for a particular answer. It's not something like a watertight compartment. the thing is it's an open house kind of a thing. So whatever the children say, nothing is wrong. It could all be correct. But when they take up a decision, they must gather evidence on that. Again, I'll give you an example. Suppose we tell our children, suppose I'm a history teacher and I'm teaching them the different kinds of architecture in the medieval period. So in the medieval period, we had Rajputs, we had Mughal kings, we also had the Marathas in different parts of the country. And of course, we had some kings too in the south also. Now you tell them to collect pictures of buildings, not buildings, in those times there were forts and there were temples only. So collect pictures from different parts of the country, and then based on your pictures that you collect, give me 3 salient features of the architecture of the Rajputs, the Mughals, and the Marathas. So children will probably, they will collect a lot of evidence and they'll say that red sandstone was used mostly by the Mughals and even the Marathas and even the Rajputs. So this was a common point between them. But the other things, the kind of sculpting that was done, the kind of minarets that were made, the kind of tombs that were made, the domes that were made, they were all different, differently made by the different clans. The Mughals were like, they had a lot of domes, they had minarets, but we used to have very nice these pillars. The Hindu form of architecture has a lot of pillars and they are so differently made. Some are musical, some are some other thing. So this is how they gather evidence and they learn themselves the different kinds of architecture that was prevalent at the same time in India, but made by different types of people. So they will gather evidence and then they can make a scrapbook and paste it. And then that is something which they can keep for their own, the entire life. They can see it and be happy that this is what I did when I was a kid in school. So they gather evidence themselves and you tell them how to do it, but let them do the work themselves. But whatever inference they come, whatever result they come to, it should be based on the evidence which they have collected on their own. That's how they will become critical thinkers. So continuing the same thing. Now, they make certain assumptions. They assume certain things, but then tell them to, in the previous slide, I said that most of the buildings that were made in the medieval period, they were made of red sandstone. So why? Why is it that most of the buildings were made with this stone? Ask the students. They will say probably that was the only stone which was very readily available everywhere. But then marble was also available. So they used marble also, they used sandstone also. I'm just giving an example. So whenever children are assuming something, you ask them, why have you made this kind of an assumption? It should not be something like just because I think it's like that. No, there has to be a reason why they have made a particular assumption. When they come up with arguments, analyze their arguments also. Let them have a very short kind of discussion. One child is trying to say something, another is saying something. So when they talk in a positive manner, when they discuss something positively, they come to different kinds of inferences and you can just sit back and be happy that your children are thinking about a certain aspect in different manners. A very simple and very, very ordinary example. I was told by one of my teachers that there was a child crying in her class and she tried to pacify, but the child he would not stop crying. So she got so worried and then, suddenly she had a little spark in her mind and she told the students, you tell me why is this boy crying and he's not stopping. So they all got together and, I don't know what they said and the child kept quiet and began to smile. And then later she asked that, why do you think he was crying? Somebody said, Mummy ki yaad aa rahi thi. Another one said, bhukha tha. Somebody said, isko pet mein dard ho raha tha. So this class LKG. So if they can think, differently at that particular age, when you're barely 5 to 6 years of age, our grown-up children can have so many different kinds of beliefs and arguments, but let them analyze their own arguments. you try to teach them the authenticity of what they are thinking and praise them for the right direction in which they are going. Healthy skepticism. Skepticism is a general feeling of doubt about something. Have I done this correctly or have I not done? But this is something which should be there, because if you are happy with what you've done, there'll be no scope of improvement. So try to teach your children, your students, that healthy skepticism always helps. I made a certain dish, being a mother. Sometimes I make something, but I feel there's something missing, some secret ingredient. And then when I realize it and I put it next time, the dish turns out to be better. So if I am not self-critical, if I do not criticize, if I do not think about what I've done or what I've made, only then will I be able to improve. Nobody is 100% correct. There's always a scope for improvement. For example, I'm sure most of you ladies would have tried making ice cream, and usually there is some ice crystals gather. Haven't we all tried to do something or the other to make it as smooth as what we get outside in the market, something like quality balls and Amul ice cream? So we've used our own, intelligence or our own tricks to make it better. So if we can do that in the kitchen, why can't our students do that in their class? Help them to do, to have this habit of a little kind of doubt. I've done this, it's very good, but can I improve it? Had this not been there, when the mobile phones came, they were only used for talking. Then came messaging. After that, I mean, there's no stopping. Now you have phones which can do everything. They are your cameras, they are your clocks, they record your voice. I mean, there is so many, they have calendars. There are so many uses that we put our mobile phones to. Had this thing not occurred to somebody, mobile phones would not have improved every year. In fact, every month there is something new which comes up. So healthy skepticism is again very important. Now, self-reflection again, as I told you, metacognition. So ultimately, when we complete a class, when we see our children coming out with their inferences and their decisions, we must make a self-reflection. Have I done it in the correct manner? Have I been able to convey the goods to my students in the right perspective that I was hoping to? Because self-analysis or self-reflection for teachers is very important, because again, things are changing at a very rapid pace. So we as teachers have to continuously think of novel ways, new ways in which we can help our children to become critical thinkers. Additional resources that we can use. There is something which is known as a Socratic seminar. And what is this seminar? We've already heard. But what is Socratic? It is a student-led text-based discussion where participants explore a text by asking and answering open-ended questions, fostering critical thinking and deeper understanding of the material. Like, for example, being an English teacher, I'll take the example of a poem by Mr. Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. I'm sure English teachers would know there is a road which diverges, and he is now standing at that crossroad. Which road should I take? So he questions himself, that is the one on the left correct or on the right? Because both of them are seemingly the same, but one he feels has been less traveled by. So he keeps thinking of all the pros and cons, and then ultimately he goes on the road which he thinks has been less traveled, less frequently traveled upon. This is how, and how does this imply in later life? That it is something which is metaphorical, that in our lives, there are situations where we also have to select one particular option, this one or that one. So again, we go into a process of critical thinking. We decide, we think about the pros and cons, we weigh, we evaluate the inferences, and then we synthesize the information, and then we come to a conclusion. Similarly, when we have a Socratic seminar, here every child gets to speak one by one. It's not something where everybody is talking together. They're all given a chance to speak about their ideas, one after the other, not together. And then as the discussion progresses, then so this helps them, because when they hear their friends speaking, there is so much they get to learn from each other. And this is how they get a deeper understanding of the material or the subject matter which you were trying to teach. In this context, I would like to, bring Bloom's taxonomy. Here, this is how, we go from simple things to more complex parts of our education. Like we remember, firstly, we remember things that we've seen, then we understand them, then it is that knowledge gained is applied, then it is analyzed, evaluated, and then something new is created. So Bloom's taxonomy also works on this principle of critical thinking. Coming from abstract, something from very clear to abstract, something from simple to difficult. So these are the additional resources that we can work upon, and we can go about, the way Bloom's taxonomy, it moves forward. This is an hierarchical framework used to classify educational learning objectives into levels of complexity and specificity, like from simple to complex. So in the end, I would like to say that, like Punita ma'am said at the onset, thinking outside the box, thinking differently. Thinking outside the box means thinking differently from the rest of the people. So we must teach our students in such a way which promotes critical thinking. They should not just take things as we teach them. You make them, question what you've said. And if they have that spirit of inquiry, and then those inquiries are answered in a very proficient manner, then your students are going to become critical thinkers. And critical thinkers always make very good students because they can weigh the pros and cons of different contexts. The spirit of inquiry is again important, as I said, because if we do not inquire into things, if we do not question things, we will not be able to make progress. You can see the way things have been progressing. Earlier there were houses which were made of mud, then there were bricks which came, then there was mortar, and then cement and all that. So slowly but steadily, things have been improving to make our lives better. Had this spirit of inquiry not been there, mankind as a whole would not have made progress. And problem solving, because every day is full of problems. It's not just school and your lessons which are, which have problems. There are so many problems in life also. Somebody is sick. That presence of mind, somebody gets a cardiac arrest, so how to revive that person. So these kinds of things also, if children are aware of whatever is happening around them and how they can help the people in distress or in the times of need, that is something which is actually called thinking outside the box. All right. So we have to make our children critical thinkers who have a spirit of inquiry, and they become very good problem solvers. Now, this problem is not just related to their academics. It could be just anything in their lives. So that was all for today. Thank you so much, everyone. It was wonderful sharing the screen and my little experiences with you. Any questions? I'll be glad to answer. And of course, if you wish to have a certificate, Ravi sir will give you, a phone number, and you can make the payment on that number, and you can grab your certificate.
Firstly, we would be very much in-depth to the participants if you can come up with any queries that you have. In case you don't have any queries, we would really be very happy if you can give your kind feedback. That would be really useful for the resource person to come up with certain changes, if any required, in the upcoming sessions. And it's a
Archana,
motivation.
ma'am, it was a wonderful session.
Thank
I
you.
learned so many new things.
Thank you so much, Rita ma'am. Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Tripti ma'am is saying critical thinking also means planning things. Yeah, it's a part of your planning. When you think critically, like suppose you're going on a vacation to say a hilly region, what all things are you supposed to carry? Raincoats, umbrellas. If you're going to the seaside, then you carry, something like those float करने वाली चीजें ना, all those kinds of things, the floating rings, etc., because children are there with you. So depending on the kind of activity that you've planned, you have to think critically, like what all is to be, like critical thinking is there. It's a part and parcel of your day-to-day life also. Ria ma'am is saying, how do we engage gifted children in open-ended discussions? Ask them to come up with, with some idea and let the class discuss. Rather than you giving an idea, you ask them that, okay, what would you like to discuss today? Something relevant to the topic that you are discussing, like photosynthesis, for example. Children who are gifted, you tell them, how would you prove? Now, I'm talking of the middle level classes, 6th, 7th, where photosynthesis is introduced. So let the children come up and let them hold a class. You tell them, this is the topic, and today you take a class. I want to see how you can teach. They'll be very happy. And then you will get to see that, like, the way, are they imitating you? Are they following your steps? And then you can have an open-ended discussion. Let the entire class be run by these students only. So you learn so much from them. Gifted children are actually a gift, and they are a boon to you as a teacher.
Ma'am, it can be actively and skillfully
Yes.
things done in the class.
Yes, yes. I remember when I was in Jodhpur, I was the class teacher of 11th, and they were supposed to conduct a farewell for class 12. And there was some problem which was coming in, they were making a kind of a playlist for dance or for some kind of an item, and there was a lot of problem that was coming up. So one of my students who usually did not participate, he was very bright, but very, very naughty, and I never trusted him because I thought he's just a naughty boy. But he came up, he said, ma'am, please don't worry, I'll just sort it out. And he did it. So sometimes, because they have been observing you, that this child had the ability to see that I was getting worried, how will the program be conducted? Yes, it was their function, but still we as teachers have to help them in their planning. So they come up with solutions which you could not have thought. I mean, I was so happy that he could help me in that situation. So gifted children can come up with great things, at times. Right, Ria ma'am? Thank you.
Yeah. So, dear participants, those who wish to stay informed about our webinars which we are conducting on daily basis, you people can join the webinar group link which I have just now shared in the chat box. Kindly join so that you can stay informed about the webinars, and we have webinars being conducted on daily basis. Thank you. And